Well, that wealthiest man in the world turned out to be a legal worker here when he was here. Oh, I'm serious. He was supposed to be in school when he came on a student visa. He wasn't in school. He was violating the law. He's talking about all these illegals coming our way.
Welcome to RoboCast, the YouTube channel, where we like to dive deep into some of the most intriguing stories in the tech world. I'm your host, and I'm here to spark your curiosity.
And I'm the expert. I'll be helping you analyze the data and separate fact from fiction.
Now it's day 4 of our Musk corruption week, and things are about to get interesting. We're tackling a question that's been making a lot of noise online. Is Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, an illegal immigrant?
Yeah, it sounds wild, right?
It does. But there's actually a lot more to the story than meets the eye. And by the end of this deep dive, you might just change your perspective on Elon Musk.
A recent CNN report actually took a deep dive into Musk's early days in the U.S.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they raised some serious questions about his immigration status.
Well, he didn't exactly help himself when he described his own past immigration status as a gray area.
Yeah, that's not exactly a vote of confidence.
No, it's not. And, of course, legal experts took notice. A Washington Post report dug even deeper, and the whole thing blew up, leading to a very public argument between Musk and President Biden.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Musk denied any wrongdoing and even accused Biden of lying. So to try and make sense of this whole mess, let's go back to the beginning. Musk claims to have held 2 visas while he was in the U.S., a J-1 and an H-1B.
Right. A J-1 visa is typically for exchange visitors like students or people participating in work-study programs. And an H-1B is for skilled workers who want to work in the U.S.
Okay, so what's the problem?
Well, both visas have very specific requirements. For example, a J-1 usually requires sponsorship from a university or institution.
Right.
And an H-1B is tied to a specific job with a specific company.
Gotcha. So where does Musk fit into all of this?
That's where things get interesting. Musk has never actually said which institution sponsored his J-1 visa. He's also never said exactly when he held it.
You'd think that wouldn't be such a big secret.
You'd think so. It's basic information. This lack of transparency is definitely a red flag for some experts.
So what are the rules about working when you're in the U.S. on a student visa?
Very strict. You can only work in jobs that are related to your studies or training program.
So let's say you come to the U.S. on a J-1 to study software engineering.
Okay.
But you end up dropping out of the program to focus on something else.
You would immediately lose your legal status in the U.S. and you wouldn't be allowed to work at all.
Oh, wow. Okay. And Musk claims he was working 12 hours a week while he was a student at Stanford to maintain his visa status.
He does, but there's a problem with that.
What's that?
Stanford University has said that they have no record of Musk ever enrolling in their materials science and engineering program.
Hold on. So he was saying he was working 12 hours a week to maintain a student visa for a program he wasn't even in.
It seems that way.
This is getting weirder by the minute.
It is. And there's more. Some early investors in Musk's first company, Zip2, it was an online city guide. They said they were surprised to learn that both Elon and his brother Kimball were actually illegal immigrants when they founded the company.
Really?
Yeah. Elon has disputed his brother's account of their immigration status, but it definitely adds another layer to this story.
It does. And we also have Musk's own words to think about. At a 2013 event, he described his early immigration status as a gray area. And in a 2020 podcast interview, he said he had a student work visa.
Right, but student work visa isn't actually a real term.
What?
Yeah, experts have looked at the records and they doubt that such a visa category even existed back then.
So he could have just been making it up.
It's possible, but it's also important to remember that immigration rules were a lot less strict when Musk was a student.
Okay.
Especially in the early 90s. Things really changed after the September 11 attacks.
Right, because it was discovered that some of the hijackers had exploited the student visa system to be in the U.S.
Exactly, and that led to much stricter rules and tougher enforcement.
So we're left with a ton of conflicting information. Was Musk being honest about his visa status all those years ago? Was he trying to take advantage of the system? Or was he just trying to navigate a really complicated set of rules?
It's hard to say for sure.
Remember how Musk said that he had to work 12 hours a week to keep his student visa valid? Well, Zip2 was founded in 1995.
And he was supposedly studying at Stanford at the same time. This doesn't add up. Was he working on Zip2 before he officially dropped out of Stanford?
Musk was claiming to be working to maintain his student visa while at Stanford, but Stanford says he wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he launches Zip2 in 1995.
It's a pretty suspicious timeline. It raises some serious concerns about whether he was following the rules for his visa.
Yeah, if you're the U.S. on a student visa, you can't just work wherever you want.
Exactly. It's like you're given this backstage pass for a concert, you know?
Yeah.
You can go in certain areas, but you can't just wander around doing whatever you want.
Right. You have to stay within the designated areas.
Exactly. Your visa has specific conditions, and if you start working outside those conditions, you're breaking the rules.
So if Musk was working on Zip2 while he was supposed to be a student, he might have been breaking those rules. It's like using that backstage pass to sneak into the concert's VIP lounge.
Exactly. You're not supposed to be there. And remember, we're talking about a time when immigration rules were being heavily scrutinized.
Right after 9/11, everything changed.
Exactly. The U.S. government realized that the student visa system could be exploited, so they made the rules a lot stricter, and enforcement got a lot tougher.
So what Musk is accused of doing back then might have slipped under the radar in the early 90s.
Maybe, but in the post-9/11 world, those same actions would likely get you into a lot of trouble. It's like trying to sneak into that VIP lounge after they've beefed up security. You're way more likely to get caught.
Okay, so let's say Musk was bending the rules back then. What are the implications of that? What could happen?
Well, for starters, it could really damage his reputation and the public's trust in him. I mean, this is a guy who has built his career on this carefully crafted image of innovation and success.
Yeah, it would be like finding out that your favorite rock star had been lip-syncing all their hit songs.
Exactly. You start to question everything you thought you knew about them. And it's not just about reputation. There could be legal consequences, too.
You mean like fines or penalties? Could he even be deported?
It's possible. It really depends on the specific circumstances, but the consequences for breaking immigration laws can be pretty serious.
And what about Tesla and SpaceX? Could all of this affect his companies?
Definitely. This kind of revelation could cause a lot of uncertainty and instability for those companies. Investors might get nervous and start pulling their money out.
And it could even put government contracts at risk.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. government probably wouldn't be thrilled to learn that the CEO of a company they're doing business with might have a shady immigration history.
So this whole thing could become a huge liability for Musk. Not just for him personally, but for his entire business empire.
It's incredible to think that something that happened decades ago could suddenly resurface and have such a huge impact.
It's like a dormant volcano suddenly erupting and spewing lava everywhere. You never know when the past might come back to haunt you.
This whole situation really highlights the importance of transparency and accountability, especially for people who are in positions of power and influence.
The past always has a way of catching up with the present. What are the key takeaways here? What do we want our viewers to understand about all of this?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that we're talking about allegations and interpretations of events. We haven't seen all the evidence, and Musk has denied any wrongdoing.
Right. We need to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
But even if some of these allegations turn out to be false, the fact that they've come up and are being taken seriously says a lot.
What do you mean?
It shows how important it is to follow the rules no matter who you are or how successful you are.
I see what you're saying. It also makes you think about ambition and how far some people are willing to go to achieve their goals.
That's a big question. Is it ever okay to bend the rules or even break them in pursuit of success?
These are tough questions with no easy answers.
But they're important questions to ask, especially as we try to make sense of this ever-changing world of technology and innovation.
Now, before we move on, let's circle back to that mystery we talked about at the beginning. Remember Musk's claim about working 12 hours a week to maintain his student status?
Ah, yes. The curious case of the busy student entrepreneur.
It seems like that little detail might be the key to figuring out this whole puzzle.
How so?
Well, it suggests that Musk might have been pushing the boundaries of his visa from the very beginning, even before Zip2 was officially up and running.
It's like finding a hidden clue in a detective novel that suddenly changes everything.
Musk claims he had to work 12 hours a week to maintain his student visa while he was at Stanford. But Stanford says he was never even enrolled in their program.
Right. And then Zip2 launches in 1995, the same year he was supposedly studying at Stanford.
So was he secretly working on his startup dreams while pretending to be a student?
It's definitely a possibility. Remember, Musk came to the U.S. in 1992 to study at the University of Pennsylvania. He graduated and then briefly enrolled at Stanford in 1995, but dropped out almost immediately.
And Zip2 was founded that same year.
Exactly. So the timeline is very suspicious. It seems like he might have been laying the groundwork for Zip2 while he was still supposed to be focused on his studies at Stanford.
It's like the ultimate side hustle.
Right. But here's the thing. Student visas have very specific rules about work authorization. You can't just take any job you want.
You have to work in a job that is related to your field of study.
Exactly. It's like you're given a library card to borrow books, but you can't use that same card to get into a movie theater.
I see what you mean. Each card has its own purpose and limitations.
Right. So if Musk was working on Zip2 while he was on a student visa, he might have been violating the terms of his visa. And that could have some pretty serious consequences.
So even though all of this happened decades ago, he could still get in trouble for it today.
It's possible. While there are statutes of limitations for some immigration offenses, there's always the chance that old cases can be reopened or that new challenges can be made to someone's current immigration status.
So that gray area Musk talked about could come back to haunt him.
It definitely could. This whole story really highlights the importance of transparency and accountability, especially for people like Elon Musk who are in positions of power and influence.
And it raises some interesting questions about the ethics of ambition.
Right. Is it okay to bend the rules or even break them if it means you can achieve great things?
Where do we draw the line between pushing the boundaries and breaking the rules? And what are we willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of success?
I see what you mean. So what's the verdict? Is Elon Musk an illegal immigrant?
We can't say for sure. We're not judges or immigration experts, but we've presented the facts and the timeline, and we've highlighted the inconsistencies in Musk's story. We encourage you to do your own research and come to your own conclusions.
We hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought and sparked your curiosity about the complex world of immigration, entrepreneurship, and ambition.
Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe to RoboCast for more intriguing explorations into the world of technology and beyond.
Until next time, keep those minds questioning and those algorithms humming.